The shuttle touched down on the golden landing platform with barely a whisper. Ambassador Tae-hyun stepped out into the artificial atmosphere of the Valtheris throne world, his dark suit crisp despite the long journey from Earth. Behind him, his assistant Hee-jin carried the diplomatic cases, her young face trying hard to hide her nervousness. "Stay close," Tae-hyun said quietly. "Remember your training." The throne world was unlike anything humanity had ever built. Massive towers of crystal and metal stretched into the purple sky. Floating gardens drifted between buildings. Everything screamed of power and ancient wealth. The Valtheris Empire had ruled 200 star systems for 3,000 years. They wanted everyone to know it. A group of tall, thin aliens waited at the edge of the platform. Their skin shimmered like oil on water, changing colors with each movement. The lead alien wore robes of deep crimson. He looked down at Tae-hyun with barely concealed disgust. "You are the human representative?" the alien asked. His voice sounded like wind through broken glass. "I am Ambassador Tae-hyun Kim of United Earth," Tae-hyun replied. He did not bow. Human diplomatic protocol was clear on this point. They showed respect through words and actions, not through submission. The alien's colors flickered to angry orange. "I am High Chamberlain Velkoth. You will follow me to the Imperial Palace. The Emperor has granted you the honor of an audience." They walked through corridors that seemed designed to make visitors feel small. The ceilings stretched up into darkness. Statues of previous emperors lined the walls, each one larger than life. Guards in elaborate armor stood every few meters, their weapons humming with barely contained energy. Hee-jin whispered, "Sir, there are so many of them." "That's the point," Tae-hyun answered. "They want us to feel outnumbered. Stay calm." Captain Jiwoo and his security team followed at a distance. The captain's hand never strayed far from his sidearm. Though they all knew their small weapons would be useless if things went wrong, the Indomitable waited in orbit. A single human ship surrounded by hundreds of Valtheris warships. The throne room was enormous. Thousands of alien nobles filled the tiered seats that rose up on all sides. At the far end, on a throne made of some material that seemed to capture and bend light itself, sat Emperor Valthos IX. He was twice the size of his subjects. Whether by genetics or technology, nobody knew. "The human approaches," announced a herald. His voice echoed through the vast space. Tae-hyun walked forward steadily. Each step felt like it took forever. He could feel thousands of alien eyes watching him, judging him, seeing him as primitive, young, barely worthy of notice. He stopped at the base of the throne, exactly where protocol demanded. Hee-jin stood beside him, her hands trembling slightly. "You may kneel," the Emperor said. His voice was deep and rumbling like distant thunder. Tae-hyun kept his back straight. "Your Majesty, I come with greetings from the people of Earth. We seek to establish trade relations and mutual understanding between our peoples." The room went silent. Even the whispers stopped. "You did not kneel," the Emperor observed. His color shifted to a dark, angry red. Human diplomatic tradition holds that representatives of sovereign peoples meet as equals. Tae-hyun explained calmly. "I mean no disrespect. This is our way." "Your way?" The Emperor leaned forward. "This is my empire, my throne world. You stand in my presence. You will kneel, or you will be made to kneel." Captain Jiwoo moved forward, but guards immediately blocked his path. Energy weapons powered up with a whine that filled the air. Tae-hyun glanced back at his team, then returned his gaze to the Emperor. "I cannot, Your Majesty. To do so would be to betray my oath and my people. Surely a ruler as wise as yourself understands the importance of honor and duty." For a moment, the Emperor said nothing. The silence stretched out, terrible and complete. Then he spoke, and his voice was cold as the void between stars. "You insult me in my own throne room. You refuse my direct command. You compare your primitive notions of honor to imperial law." He stood, towering over the assembly. "For these crimes against imperial dignity, I sentence you to death. Immediate execution. Let this be a lesson to all who would challenge the Empire." "No," Hee-jin screamed. She tried to run forward, but guards grabbed her. Captain Jiwoo drew his weapon, but 20 alien guards surrounded him instantly. "Stand down," he shouted into his communicator. "All units stand down. Do not engage!" Tae-hyun turned to look at his team one last time. His face was calm, though his hands shook. "Tell them I did not kneel," he said quietly. "Tell them I stood for Earth until the end." "Sir, please," Hee-jin was crying now. There has to be another way. Remember your training, Taehyun told her. Go home. Tell them what happened here. Guards dragged him to the center of the throne room. The nobles watched with fascination, as if this were entertainment. The emperor gestured lazily, and an executioner appeared carrying a weapon that glowed with deadly energy. Taehyun knelt now, but not in submission. He knelt because they forced him down. Even then, he tried to raise his head to meet death with dignity. The weapon fired. The sound echoed through the throne room like a thunderclap. Ambassador Taehyun Kim fell and did not move again. Captain Jiwoo stood frozen, his weapon useless in his hand. Heejin collapsed, sobbing. The emperor sat back down on his throne looking bored already. Remove the body, he commanded. Send it back with the other humans. Let them see the price of disrespect. They carried Taehyun's body back to the shuttle on a simple stretcher. The Valtheris guards said nothing. They seemed to view the whole thing as routine, barely worth remembering. Just another minor species learning its place. The shuttle lifted off in silence. Inside, Heejin held Taehyun's hand, though it was already growing cold. Captain Jiwoo stared straight ahead, his jaw clenched so tight his teeth hurt. Captain, the pilot said quietly, Earth Command is requesting immediate contact. Jiwoo moved to the communications station. His fingers trembled as he activated the quantum link. The face of Admiral Han appeared stern and waiting. Report, the Admiral said. They killed him, sir. Jiwoo's voice cracked. They executed Ambassador Taehyun for refusing to kneel. We were right there. We couldn't stop it. There were too many of them. I request permission to engage their forces. The Admiral closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were hard as diamonds. Negative, Captain. You will return to Earth immediately. Do not engage. Do not retaliate. Do you understand? Sir, they murdered our ambassador. Captain Park, you will follow your orders. Return home. We will handle this. The Admiral leaned closer to the screen. We will handle this our way. The transmission ended. The Indomitable broke orbit an hour later. Behind them, the Valtheris Empire celebrated another demonstration of their power. They broadcast the execution across all their systems. They wanted everyone to see what happened to those who defied Imperial will. They had no idea what they had just started. In the shuttle, Hyejin finally spoke through her tears. He died for nothing. They didn't even care. Captain Jiwoo looked at Taehyun's body, covered now with a human flag. He didn't die for nothing, he said quietly. He showed them who we are. Now they're going to learn what that means. The journey home would take 3 weeks. 3 weeks to mourn, 3 weeks to remember. 3 weeks for Earth to plan its response. The Valtheris Empire had executed a human diplomat. They would soon learn what humans did to those who killed their own. The funeral was held on a cold morning in Seoul. Rain fell steadily as billions watched from across Earth and her colonies. Taehyun's casket, draped in the blue and white flag of United Earth, sat on a platform in the center of Memorial Plaza. President Da-Yoon stood at the podium, her face pale but composed. She had not slept in 3 days. Behind her, Taehyun's wife and 2 daughters sat in silence, their grief too deep for tears. Ambassador Taehyun Kim was a man of peace, Da-Yoon began. Her voice carried across the plaza through thousands of speakers. He believed in dialogue. He believed that different peoples could find common ground. He believed in the future. She paused, looking down at her notes. Then she set them aside. They killed him for refusing to kneel. They killed him for standing as a free human being. They killed him and they laughed. Her voice grew harder. They think we are weak. They think we are children playing at civilization. They think we will accept this insult and move on. Daehyun looked directly into the cameras. They are wrong. Taehyun showed them who we are. He showed them that humans do not bow to tyrants. Now we will show them what happens when they mistake our preference for peace as weakness. The Valtheris Empire has committed an act of war. We will respond. Not with words, not with protests, with action. The funeral ended in silence. No speeches from other dignitaries, no music. Just the rain and the sound of millions mourning. That afternoon, Admiral Sungmin convened an emergency meeting in the war room deep beneath Tokyo. The walls were covered with holographic displays showing every known Valtheris position. It looked hopeless. Their empire was massive, ancient, and powerful. They have 5,000 warships, said General Kyung-soo. Head of Fleet Operations. We have 96. They control 200 star systems. We control 7. A direct war would be suicide. Then we don't fight a direct war, Admiral Sung Min replied. He touched a control and the display changed, zooming in on a single point. The throne world. We cut off the head. Dr. Bo Young, Director of Strategic Intelligence, stood up. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and a reputation for seeing patterns others missed. I've been analyzing Valtherus military doctrine for the past 72 hours. I've found something interesting. She pulled up files on the display. Battle records, training footage, fleet movements. They haven't fought a real war in 800 years. Their last serious conflict was a minor border dispute that lasted 6 months. Since then, nothing. Their military exists for ceremony and intimidation. So they're rusty, said General Kyung-soo. That doesn't change the numbers. It changes everything, Bo Young insisted. Look at their tactics. Rigid formations, predictable patrol routes. Their doctrine hasn't evolved in centuries. Their ships are powerful but slow. Their crews train for parades, not combat. She brought up another file. Meanwhile, humanity has been fighting for our entire existence. We had 2 world wars before we reached space. We fought over Mars, we had the colony rebellions, the resource wars. We've been refining the art of war for thousands of years. Admiral Sung Min nodded slowly. What are you proposing? Operation Regicide, Bo Young said. We don't try to match their fleet. We send a small force fast and stealthy. We infiltrate their throne world. And we kill their emperor. The room erupted in arguments. Half the officers thought it was brilliant. The other half thought it was insane. It's a suicide mission, Captain Wanshik protested. Even if we get there, the palace is a fortress. Orbital defense platforms, thousands of guards, energy shields. We'd never make it past the outer perimeter. Not with conventional forces, Bo Young agreed. But we don't need to break down the front door. We just need to open a window. She pulled up new files. For the past year, we've had deep cover operatives in Valtherus space. They've been mapping their systems, studying their technology, stealing access codes. Last week, one of them transmitted the complete architectural plans for the Imperial Palace. Admiral Sung Min studied the plans carefully. How accurate are these? Verified through 3 independent sources, Bo Young confirmed. The palace hasn't been significantly modified in 200 years. Why would it be? Nobody's attacked it in living memory. They think it's untouchable. President Da-Yoon entered the room. Everyone stood, but she waved them back down. I've been listening from my office, she said. Tell me honestly, Admiral. Can we do this? Sung Min was quiet for a long moment. It will cost lives. Many of our best people won't come home. But yes, I believe we can do it. Then make it happen, Da-Yoon ordered. The Valtherus Empire thinks they can kill our diplomats without consequence. We're going to teach them a lesson they'll never forget. Over the next 3 weeks, Operation Regicide took shape. 50 ships were selected for the mission. Not the biggest ships in the fleet, but the fastest and most advanced. New stealth systems were installed, borrowed from experimental designs that hadn't finished testing. Admiral Sung Min personally selected every crew member. He wanted volunteers only. People who understood the risks and accepted them. When word spread about the mission, thousands applied. He had to turn away more people than he could accept. In a training facility outside Vancouver, Corporal Minna assembled her strike team. 12 people, the best special operations soldiers humanity had produced. They would be the ones to actually enter the palace and kill the emperor. Listen up, Minna addressed her team. She was young for a mission leader, only 26. But she had seen combat on 3 colony worlds and never lost a soldier under her command. This is not a normal operation. We're not extracting hostages or destroying a weapons facility. We're going to kill a head of state. Private Hyunwoo raised his hand. He was the demolitions expert, good with explosives and bad with rules. Are we the good guys in this scenario? They executed our ambassador, Minna replied. They did it publicly as a show of dominance. They think we're weak. We're going to prove them wrong. But killing their leader, Hyunwoo pressed. Isn't that making us just like them? No, Sergeant Young-ho spoke up. He was older than the rest, a veteran of the colony wars. They killed Tae-hyun because he refused to submit. We're killing their emperor because he murdered an innocent man. There's a difference, Minna nodded. Anyone who has doubts can leave now. No judgment. This mission requires total commitment. Nobody moved. Good, Minna said. Then let's get to work. They trained 16 hours a day. Physical conditioning, weapons practice, zero-gravity combat. They studied every recording of the Imperial Palace they could find. They memorized guard rotations, learned Valtheris fighting techniques, practiced moving through the kind of confined spaces they'd encounter. Dr. Bo Young visited them one evening. She brought new intelligence files. We've identified the Emperor's private chambers. He meditates there every evening for 2 hours. Only his personal guard is present. That's your window. How many guards? Minna asked. 12 to 15, depending on the day. Elite warriors, the best the Empire has. Bo Young paused. I won't lie to you. They're good. Better than good. But they've never faced humans before. That's their mistake, Minna said quietly. The fleet departed on a gray morning. No ceremony, no speeches. Just 50 ships slipping quietly out of orbit, heading for unknown space. Captain Jiwoo commanded one of the escort vessels. He had requested this assignment personally. He needed to be there when they made the Valtheris Empire pay. Hyejin, Taehyun's former assistant, stood on a viewing platform and watched them go. She had wanted to join the mission, but President Da-un had refused. You're going to be a diplomat, not a soldier, the president had told her. When this is over, we'll need people who can build peace. That's you. Now Hyejin touched the glass and whispered goodbye to the departing fleet. Across Earth, people gathered to watch. Some prayed, some sang old battle songs. Some just sat in silence, hoping their soldiers would come home. Admiral Sungmin stood on the bridge of the flagship Retribution. He looked at the stars ahead and thought about Taehyun, about the man's calm face as he refused to kneel, about his last words to his team. Sir, the navigator said quietly. Course laid in. Ready to jump. Execute, Sungmin ordered. The fleet jumped to faster than light travel. Behind them, Earth waited. Ahead of them, the Valtheris Empire continued its celebrations, unaware that death was coming for their emperor. The message had been sent. Now humanity would deliver it in person. The journey through uncharted space took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of silence and darkness, avoiding every Valtheris patrol route they knew about. The fleet moved like ghosts, their stealth systems pushed to the limit. Commander Jae-sung sat at the controls of the Silent Knife, the fleet's lead reconnaissance ship. His eyes burned from staring at screens for too long, but he didn't dare look away. One mistake, one sensor reading they missed, and the entire mission would fail before it began. Contact, whispered Lieutenant Soo-jin from the sensor station. 2 patrol ships bearing 047. They're following a standard search pattern. Jae-sung studied the display. The patrol ships were moving slowly, sweeping their sensors across the region. They weren't looking for anything specific. This was routine, but routine could still kill them. Take us into that asteroid field, he ordered. Minimal power. Cut everything except life support. The Silent Knife drifted into the field of spinning rocks. Each asteroid was big enough to hide their ship, but also big enough to crush them if they miscalculated. Jae-sung guided them between 2 massive chunks of ice and stone, then killed the engines completely. How long until they pass? He asked. If they maintain current speed, 16 hours, Soo-jin replied. 16 hours. 16 hours of floating in darkness, hoping their stealth systems were good enough, hoping the enemy didn't decide to change their patrol pattern. In the crew quarters, So-hee sat on her bunk and tried to control her breathing. This was her first deep space mission. She was 20 years old, fresh out of training, and she was terrified. Every creak of the hull made her jump. Every whisper seemed like an alarm. Hey, said Tae-yang, the engineer. He was older, maybe 40, with kind eyes. First time hiding from the enemy? So he nodded, not trusting her voice. It's okay to be scared, Tae-yang said. I've been doing this for 15 years and it still scares me. The trick is not to let the fear control you. Just breathe, in and out. Focus on that, so he tried, in and out. Slow and steady. After a few minutes, her heart stopped racing. Why are we doing this? She asked quietly. I mean, I know why. Because of Ambassador Taehyun. But we're 50 ships against an entire empire. We can't win a war. We're not trying to win a war, Tae-yang explained. We're sending a message. You kill one of ours, we kill your leader. It's about respect. About showing them we're not helpless, but what if we fail? Then we fail knowing we tried, Tae-yang said. That's better than doing nothing. The 16 hours passed slowly. The patrol ships moved through their sector, their powerful sensors sweeping across space. Twice they came close enough that the crew of the Silent Knife could see them on visual displays. But the asteroids hid them and the stealth systems worked. The enemy passed by without ever knowing they were there. "They're gone," Sujin finally reported. "We're clear." Jae-sung let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "Bring systems back online, slowly. Let's not announce ourselves now." The fleet continued its approach. Each day brought them closer to the throne world. Each day, they deployed more sensor drones, gathering intelligence about the orbital defenses. Lieutenant Sujin worked around the clock analyzing the data. The throne world was protected by dozens of weapons platforms, shield generators, and patrol vessels. On paper, it looked impossible to penetrate. But Sujin found the cracks. Their defense grid was installed 200 years ago, she explained to Admiral Sungmin during a secure video conference. They've added more weapons over time, but they never updated the core system. "Look here." She highlighted a section of the orbital sphere. "There's a gap in the sensor coverage. It's small, only lasts for 43 seconds during each rotation. But it's there." 43 seconds, the Admiral mused. "Can we get a strike team through in that time?" "If they launch at exactly the right moment, yes," Sujin confirmed. "But they'll have to go in dark. No active sensors, no communications until they're inside the palace itself. If anything goes wrong, we won't know until it's too late." "Understood," Sungmin said. "Good work, Lieutenant." In the training bay of the assault carrier Hammer, Corporal Minna pushed her team through another combat drill. They'd been training for weeks, but she wouldn't let them relax, not now. Not when they were so close. "Again," she ordered as her team completed the breach and clear exercise. "You're too slow. Hyunwoo, your breach charge took 4 seconds to arm. The enemy will shoot you 3 times in 4 seconds. "Yes, Corporal," Hyunwoo replied, breathing hard. They ran the drill again, and again, and again. By the time Minna called a halt, they were moving like a single organism. Each person knew exactly where the others would be, what they would do. Sergeant Young-ho approached her after the others had left. "They're ready," he said quietly. "Ready to die?" Minna asked. "If necessary," Young-ho replied. "We all know the odds. We're probably not coming back from this." Minna looked at the training course. "When I joined the military, my instructor told me something. He said the best soldiers don't think about dying. They think about the mission, about the people depending on them. Is that what you think about?" Young-ho asked. "I think about Tae-hyun," Minna admitted, "about how he stood there and refused to kneel, even knowing what it would cost him. If he could face death with that kind of courage, the least we can do is finish what he started." Finally, after 6 weeks of careful approach, the fleet reached the outer system. They were still days away from the throne world itself, but now they could see it. A massive planet wrapped in artificial rings and orbital structures, the heart of an empire. Commander Jae-sung deployed the final reconnaissance drones. These were special models designed to look like space debris. They drifted slowly toward the throne world, gathering detailed scans of everything. "Getting clear readings of the palace station," Sujin reported. "It's bigger than we thought. 50,000 occupants at least. The Emperor's section is here in the central spire." She transferred the data to the strike team. Minna studied the layouts carefully, comparing them to the stolen blueprints they'd received. Everything matched. "The insertion point is here." Minna pointed to a section of the palace's outer hull. "Maintenance access. There's an airlock that's only used once a week for routine repairs. We'll enter there." "Security?" Young-ho asked. "Minimal," Sujin answered. 2 guards at most. The Valtheris don't expect anyone to get this far." Private Ji-hoon, the team's sniper, studied the approach vectors. "We'll be exposed during the drop. If they detect us before we reach the hull, those orbital weapons will tear us apart. That's why we're going in during the sensor gap," Minna explained. 43 seconds of invisibility. "We'll be moving too fast for visual detection. By the time their sensors come back online, we'll already be inside." The team spent their final day preparing. They checked their equipment 3 times. Weapons, ammunition, breaching charges, medical supplies. Everything had to be perfect. Minna wrote letters to her family just in case. She told them she loved them. She told them she was proud to serve. She didn't tell them she was probably going to die. That evening, Admiral Sung-min addressed the fleet. "Tomorrow we strike. Some of you will engage the enemy fleet, drawing their attention away from the palace. Some of you will provide cover for the strike team's escape, and some of you will deliver justice to the Emperor who murdered our ambassador." He paused. "We didn't choose this fight, but we'll finish it. The Valtheris Empire thinks we're weak. Tomorrow we show them the truth. Humanity does not forgive. Humanity does not forget. And humanity does not surrender." The fleet cheered. Even knowing the odds, they cheered. In the drop bay, Minna gathered her team one last time. 12 people, young and old, men and women, all volunteers, all ready to die if necessary. "Listen up," she said. "In about 6 hours, we're going to ride drop pods down to that palace. We're going to fight our way through guards who've trained their entire lives. We're going to kill an emperor in his own fortress, and then we're going to try to escape." She looked at each of them. "I won't lie. The odds are terrible. But we're not doing this for the odds. We're doing this because Ambassador Taehyun deserves justice, because humanity deserves respect, because someone has to show these ancient empires that we're not prey." "For Taehyun," Young Ho said quietly. "For Taehyun," the others repeated. The countdown began. 6 hours until insertion. 5 hours. 4 Minna checked her weapon one more time. She thought about her family, about Earth, about the ambassador who had died rather than kneel. 1 hour. The team loaded into their drop pods. Each pod was tiny, barely larger than a coffin. They would fall toward the palace like meteorites, protected only by heat shields and stealth coating. 10 minutes. Jae-sung's voice crackled over the radio. "Sensor gap approaching. Stand by." Minna closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "Launch in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch." The pods fired from the ship like bullets, 12 points of metal and flesh, falling toward the palace below. The G-forces pressed Minna into her seat. She couldn't move, could barely breathe. Through the tiny window, she saw the throne world growing larger. The palace gleamed like a jewel in orbit. "For Taehyun," she whispered one more time. The drop pod screamed through space, invisible to enemy sensors, racing toward their target, toward revenge, toward justice. The drop pods hit the palace hull like rain on metal. The impacts were small, designed to look like micrometeorites. Inside each pod, the strike team members held their breath and waited. Minna's pod shook violently as the magnetic clamps engaged, locking her to the station's outer hull. Through the tiny window, she could see 2 other pods attached nearby. The rest of the team should be scattered across this section, all within 100 meters of each other. She activated her short-range communicator. "Sound off," she whispered. 2 here, Young Ho replied. 5, operational, came Hyun-woo's voice. 1 by 1, the team checked in. 12 voices. All of them had made it through the drop. "Phase 1 complete," Minna said. "Beginning hull breach in 30 seconds. Remember, we go silent the moment we're inside. Hand signals only until we reach the service corridors." She activated the cutting laser built into her pod. It burned through the hull slowly, creating a hole just wide enough for a person. Atmosphere hissed out into space for a moment before the emergency system sealed the breach from inside. Minna dropped through the hole into a dark maintenance tunnel. She landed softly, her magnetic boots keeping her stable in the low gravity. Her weapon was up instantly, scanning for targets. Nothing. The tunnel was empty. 1 by 1, her team dropped through their entry points and moved toward her position. They communicated through hand signals, moving like shadows through the darkness. Young Ho spotted the first guard, a Valtheris soldier in light armor, walking a routine patrol. He looked bored, probably thinking about anything except his job. Minna made a cutting motion across her throat. Ji-hoon the sniper nodded. He pulled a knife from his belt. They didn't want to use guns yet. Noise would bring more guards. Ji-hoon moved like smoke. The guard never heard him coming. 1 hand over the alien's mouth, 1 knife through the spine. The guard went limp. Ji-hoon lowered him quietly to the floor. They moved deeper into the station. The stolen blueprints were perfect. Every corridor was exactly where it should be. Every room matched the plans. But plans couldn't predict everything. They rounded a corner and found themselves face to face with 4 guards. For a split second, everyone froze. Then the guards reached for their weapons. "Contact," Young Ho shouted, and the silence broke. The firefight lasted maybe 10 seconds. Minna's team had the advantage of surprise and better weapons. But the guards were well trained. One managed to fire his energy weapon before he died, the blast scoring the wall. "Move," Minna ordered. They'll have heard that. We have maybe 2 minutes before reinforcements arrive. They ran through the corridors. Behind them, alarms started to wail. Lights flashed red. The entire station was waking up to the threat. Hyunwoo stopped at a junction. The charges, he said. I need to place them now before we get cut off. Do it, Mina agreed. Yoonji Junki, stay with him. The rest of us push forward to the Emperor's chambers. Hyunwoo worked quickly, placing shaped charges at key structural points. These were their escape route. If everything went wrong, he'd blow open a path to the outer hull where extraction pods waited. The rest of the team moved toward the central spire. They encountered more guards, more firefights. Each battle cost them time and ammunition. Private Yoonji died in one of those battles. A guard's energy blast caught her in the chest. She fell without a sound. Junki tried to reach her, but more guards appeared. He had to choose between mourning and surviving. Keep moving, Young-ho shouted, laying down covering fire. They reached a service elevator that would take them up toward the Imperial chambers. But a full squad of guards blocked the way. These weren't regular soldiers. They wore heavier armor and carried better weapons. Elite guards, Ji-hoon observed. This is going to hurt. The battle was brutal. The guards fought with precision and skill. They used the corridor's cover expertly, coordinated their fire, and didn't panic. Junki charged forward with a breaching tool, trying to clear a path. 3 guards focused fire on him. He went down hard. Junki, someone screamed. Don't stop, Mina ordered. She threw a grenade over the guard's position. The explosion gave them 3 seconds of chaos. 3 seconds to push forward. Young-ho tackled one guard, grappling hand to hand. The alien was stronger, but Young-ho fought with desperate fury. They went down together in a tangle of limbs. Go, Young-ho shouted. I've got this one. Get to the Emperor. Mina hesitated for just a moment. Then she ran for the elevator, Ji-hoon behind her. The doors closed as more guards appeared down the corridor. Inside the elevator, Mina checked her ammunition. She was down to 2 magazines. Ji-hoon wasn't much better off. This is it, Ji-hoon said quietly. Just us now. Just us, Mina agreed. The elevator rose through the heart of the palace. Through the transparent walls, they could see the massive interior. Gardens hung in the air. Water flowed in impossible directions. It was beautiful and terrible. The doors opened onto the Imperial level. A dozen elite guards waited, arranged in perfect formation around a set of ornate doors. Behind those doors was the Emperor's meditation chamber. Guard Captain Thelkor stood at the center of the formation. He was massive, even for a Valtheris. His armor was decorated with marks of 100 victories. Humans, he said in surprisingly good English. You have fought well to reach this place, but this is where your story ends. Move aside, Mina replied. We're not here for you. We're here for your Emperor. That is why we cannot move, Thelkor said. We are the Emperor's shield. We die before we yield. So be it, Mina said. The battle was unlike anything she'd experienced. The elite guards moved with perfect coordination. Each one was a master warrior. They didn't make mistakes. Ji-hoon took down 3 guards before an energy blast caught him in the leg. He fell, still firing. Go! He screamed at Mina. Don't stop. Mina ran forward. A guard blocked her path. She shot him. Another appeared. She shot him too. Her weapon clicked empty. She dropped it and drew her knife. Guard Captain Thelkor came at her like a storm. He was faster than she expected, stronger than she could match. His blade cut through her armor, drawing blood. Then Young-ho appeared from the elevator. He was wounded, bleeding from a dozen cuts, but he was still moving. He slammed into Thelkor from the side, bearing him to the ground. Run, Young-ho shouted. Finish the mission. Mina didn't waste his sacrifice. She ran for the meditation chamber doors. Energy blasts hit the walls around her. She felt heat as one passed close to her head. But she didn't stop. The doors were locked. She placed her last breaching charge and ducked away. The explosion blew them open. Inside, Emperor Valthos Nime stood waiting. He wasn't wearing armor or carrying weapons. He looked almost calm, so he said, You are the human's revenge. Mina limped forward, drawing her sidearm. Every part of her hurt. She was bleeding from multiple wounds, but her hand was steady. You executed our ambassador, she said. Ambassador Taehyun Kim, he came in peace. He insulted me, the Emperor replied. He refused to acknowledge imperial supremacy. He was a free man, Mina said. Free humans don't kneel to anyone. That is why you will always be beneath us, Valthos said. You refuse to accept the natural order. The strong rule. The weak submit. This is the way of the universe. Maybe in your universe, Mina replied. In ours, we have a different rule. You kill one of ours, we kill one of yours. This is human justice, the Emperor actually smiled. You think killing me will change anything? I am eternal. I am Empire. My death will only bring another Emperor. The Empire will endure. Maybe, Mina admitted. But you won't. She pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the meditation chamber. Emperor Valthos IX fell. The ruler of 200 star systems, who had reigned for 50 years, died on the floor of his own palace. Mina stood over him for a moment. She thought about Taehyun, about Young-ho and Ji-hoon and Junki and Yoonji, about everyone who had died to reach this moment. For Taehyun, she whispered. Then the building shook. Hyunwoo's charges were detonating. The escape route was opening. Mina ran. Behind her, she could hear guards breaking through into the meditation chamber. They would find their emperor dead, and they would want revenge. But she was already moving, racing through corridors that were coming apart. The palace's structural integrity was failing. Hyunwoo had placed his charges perfectly. Entire sections were venting atmosphere. Emergency bulkheads slammed shut, sealing off some areas and trapping guards behind them. Mina reached the outer hull where they'd entered. An escape pod waited, attached to the hull like a parasite. She climbed inside and activated it. The pod tore away from the dying palace and fired its engines. Behind her, the Imperial spire was collapsing, falling in on itself. She'd done it. Against impossible odds, with her entire team dead or dying, she'd completed the mission. The pod's communicator crackled to life. Unidentified escape pod, this is the Indomitable. We have you on sensors. Transmit your identification code. This is Corporal Mina Yoon, she replied. Her voice was hoarse. Strike team leader. Mission accomplished. Emperor is dead. There was a pause. Then Captain Jiwoo's voice came through, thick with emotion. Confirmed, Corporal. We're bringing you home. Well done. Mina looked back at the throne world one last time. The palace was burning. Ships were scrambling. The entire empire was in chaos. They had killed the Emperor. The medical bay of the Indomitable smelled like disinfectant and blood. Mina lay on a bed, her wounds bandaged and treated. She stared at the ceiling and tried not to think about her team. Captain Jiwoo entered quietly. He pulled up a chair and sat down beside her bed. How are you feeling? He asked. Like I fell off a building, Mina replied. How's the fleet? We lost 3 ships covering the extraction, Jiwoo said. The Courage, Defiant, and Stormbringer. 217 people. But we got away. The Valtheris fleet tried to pursue, but they were too slow and too disorganized. Mina closed her eyes. More deaths. More people who would never go home. It was worth it, Jiwoo said, reading her thoughts. What you did changed everything. Did it? Mina asked bitterly. We killed one emperor. They'll just crown another one. Maybe, Jiwoo admitted. But the galaxy saw what happened. They saw that humans don't accept injustice. They saw that we hit back no matter the odds. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. During that time, news of the Emperor's assassination spread across known space. The Valtheris Empire tried to suppress the information, but it was too late. Everyone knew the Empire was in chaos. Various factions fought over who would become the next Emperor. Some wanted revenge against humanity. Others wanted peace. The unified empire that had ruled for 3,000 years was fracturing. Admiral Sungmin monitored the situation from the flagship Retribution. He received reports from intelligence operatives across Valtheris space. The empire was tearing itself apart. Should we press the advantage? General Kyung-soo asked during a strategy meeting. Their navy is scattered. Their leadership is fighting each other. We could strike now. No, Sungmin replied firmly. We didn't do this to conquer them. We did this to send a message. The message is sent. Now we wait and see if they learned it. Dr. Bo-young agreed. Attacking now would make us the aggressors. We'd lose the moral high ground. Better to let them sort out their own problems. President Da-un made a public address from Seoul. The whole galaxy was watching. 3 weeks ago, the Valtheris Empire executed our ambassador, Taehyun Kim. They did this because he refused to kneel, because he stood as a free human being. They thought we would accept this insult. They were wrong, her voice grew harder. We responded with force. We struck at the heart of their empire. We showed them that humanity does not forget its fallen. We showed them that there are consequences for murdering our people. She paused, letting her words sink in across the galaxy. But let me be clear. We do not seek war. We do not seek conquest. We seek only respect. We seek to be treated as equals, not as subjects. Any species that treats us with dignity will find friends in humanity. But those who harm us will face justice no matter where they hide. The address ended with a simple statement. We extend our hand first, but we will close it into a fist when necessary. The choice is yours. Across the galaxy, reactions varied. The younger species, those who had been oppressed by ancient empires, saw hope. If humanity could stand up to the Valtheris, maybe they could too. Some even sent secret messages to Earth, asking about alliances. The older empires were more cautious. They had dismissed humanity as primitive, barely worth noticing. Now they reevaluated that assessment. The humans had killed an emperor. They had struck deep into protected space and escaped. They were clearly more dangerous than anyone had realized. On the throne world, what remained of the Valtheris government tried to restore order. Prince Valthos X, the old emperor's son, emerged as the strongest candidate for succession. He was younger than his father, only 200 years old. More importantly, he was pragmatic. He gathered the surviving advisors and military leaders. "Tell me honestly," he said, "can we defeat the humans in a full war?" The military commanders looked at each other. Finally, Admiral Korvax spoke. "Perhaps, if we mobilize our full fleet, we could overwhelm them through sheer numbers, but the cost would be enormous, and we would be vulnerable to other threats while our forces are engaged. And the humans would make us pay for every victory," Valthos X observed. "They infiltrated the palace. They killed my father in his own meditation chamber. What else might they do? What other strikes could they make? They have shown themselves to be resourceful and determined." Dr. Velcor, the chief advisor, agreed. "Traditional doctrine does not apply to them. They do not fight as we expect." Valthos X was quiet for a long moment. Then he made a decision that shocked everyone in the room. "Send a message to Earth," he ordered. "Offer them a formal apology for the execution of Ambassador Taehyun Kim. Offer substantial reparations, and request new negotiations." "Your Majesty," Admiral Korvax protested, "this will be seen as weakness. The Empire does not apologize." "The Empire does not usually get its emperor assassinated either," Valthos X replied coldly. "The humans have proven they are not like other young species. We can fight them and bleed, or we can treat them as equals and build something better. I choose the latter." When the message reached Earth, it caused intense debate. Some people wanted to reject it, to press for total victory. Others saw it as a chance for real peace. President Dayun consulted with her advisors, with Admiral Sungmin, with representatives from across human space. Finally, she made her decision. "We will accept the apology and the reparations," she announced, "and we will send a new ambassador to negotiate. But this time the negotiations will be between equals." She chose Hyejin, Taehyun's former assistant, to be the new ambassador. Hyejin had grown in the months since her mentor's death. The grief had hardened her but not made her bitter. She understood what Taehyun had died for. "Are you sure about this?" Hyejin asked when Daun offered her the position. "After what they did?" "I'm sure," Daun replied. Taehyun believed in dialogue. He believed different species could find common ground. He died for that belief. Now you're going to make it real. 1 year later, Ambassador Hyejin stood in a new conference room on neutral ground. Across from her sat Prince Valthos X, now officially crowned as emperor. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then simultaneously they both bowed. Not the deep bow of submission that had gotten Taehyun killed. A bow of respect between equals. "Ambassador," Valthos X said, "thank you for coming." "Your Majesty," Hyejin replied. "I'm here to build what my mentor started." They sat down to negotiate. Real negotiations this time, between two powers that understood each other. The empire that had killed a diplomat. The species that had killed their emperor in response. Minna stood at the memorial in Seoul. It was a cold morning, much like the day of Taehyun's funeral. The memorial had been expanded now. It bore the names of everyone who had died in Operation Regicide. 11 names from her strike team. 217 from the fleet. She placed her team's combat patches next to their names. Young-ho, Ji-hoon, Jun-ki, Yun-ji, and the others. All gone, all dead for a mission that might have seemed impossible. Captain Jiwoo stood beside her. He'd brought flowers. They stood in silence for a while, remembering. "Do you think it was worth it?" Minna asked. Jiwoo was quiet for a moment. "I think about that every day," he admitted. "We lost good people. People with families, with futures. But I remember watching them execute Taehyun. Remember feeling helpless. If we'd done nothing, what would that have said about us?" "That we were civilized," Minna suggested. "That we didn't respond to violence with violence. Or that we were weak," Jiwoo countered. "That we would accept any insult, any crime, without responding. The galaxy needs to know that humans have limits. That there are lines you don't cross." Minna touched Young-ho's name on the memorial. "He saved my life. Tackled that guard captain so I could reach the Emperor. His last words were, 'Finish the mission.' And you did," Jiwoo said. "You all did. Because of you, humanity is respected now. Not feared, not hated, respected. That's what Taehyun wanted. What they all wanted." President Da-un came to the memorial that afternoon. She placed a wreath and spoke briefly to the gathered crowd. "We remember," she said simply. "We remember Ambassador Taehyun, who refused to kneel. We remember the strike team, who delivered justice. We remember the fleet crews who brought them home. Because of them, humanity stands as equals in the galaxy. We will never forget their sacrifice." The crowd was silent. Then someone began to clap. Slowly, others joined. The applause spread until thousands of people were honoring the fallen. Across the galaxy, things were changing. The younger species were bolder now, standing up to the old empires. The old empires were more careful, more respectful. Everyone had learned that humanity was not to be dismissed. Trade routes opened between Earth and species that had never contacted humans before. Cultural exchanges began. Technology was shared. The galaxy was becoming a different place, but in the halls of power, everyone remembered the lesson. The humans had crossed the void itself to kill an emperor. They had sacrificed hundreds of their own people to deliver a message. That message was clear: harm humanity at your peril. They extend a hand first, but they will close it into a fist when necessary. In her apartment in Seoul, Minna kept a photo on her desk. It showed her strike team before the mission, all 12 of them smiling despite knowing the odds. She looked at it every morning. "We did it," she whispered to the photo. "Taehyun has his justice.